Hello out there, this is the Irate Veteran coming at you with another video. Go to YouTube, go to VA Madness, right, and look through my videos because I really am overloaded, right? I don't mind it. It's my pleasure to serve my brother and sister veterans, right? But I really am overloaded. So what I want you to do, the reason I've made these self-help videos is for you to look through the videos, and I already tell you probably most of your questions are answered on the videos. All right, so no skipping around in the videos, right? Watch the whole damn thing, right? Why? I'm not talking just to hear myself talk. Well, maybe sometimes, but not all the time. All right, so let's go. I skipped one. Okay, so higher level review. It's VA form 200996. It's an RO level request. And you can't submit any new evidence. All the evidence already has to be of record. This form's used to dispute decided benefit decisions that are within the review period, right? So you must be within your 1 year review period, right? So let's talk about how to fill it out. Top of the form, self-explanatory, all your personal information, right? It really starts at block 12. And really, then you're just identifying what type of claim are you talking about. Remember, there could be numerous decisions you get. It could be, a denial of your loan guarantee. It could be about any kind of benefit, right? But in our case, mostly it's going to be compensation. Block 13, if you want your higher level review to be conducted at the same facility that did your decision that you're disputing, right? Check the box because it says, if available, I would like the higher level review conducted at the same office, right? But I'm told right now there's only 3 offices that actually do higher level reviews, right? So it probably isn't going to happen very often that, I mean, there's like 50 some regional offices across the country that are doing claim decisions, right? So, and if there's only 3 doing higher level reviews, it's probably not going to be possible most of the time to be done at the same facility. But this is such an unimportant part, right? Because I don't see what it would matter, right? That you have VA personnel at one place who are, in theory, supposed to know what they're doing. And why would you need to go to another place? In theory, they also supposedly know what they're doing. And of course, I know more than likely they're all morons. So what's the difference which moron where works your claim, right? So in any event, that's block 13. Block 14, I absolutely recommend that you ask for an informal conference, right? I have found in the past that written explanations are often overlooked. So I think you need to complement any written explanation that you'll be providing in your higher level review with an actual conversation where you can actually talk about what you've written, right? Double reinforce what you've said, right? Hopefully, then it'll get through to the person you're talking to. So, the heart of the form really is block 15, 15A, R, and 15, B. And 15, the only really important part about actual 15 is where it says, you may attach additional sheets if necessary. I want you to do that if I think in most cases it's absolutely going to be necessary, right? Because if you notice these blocks that they have, they're not very large, right? So I can't imagine that you aren't going to have, more explanation than there's room for, right? So what I'm doing and what I've done, because we're talking about a claim I just submitted, right, just a couple weeks ago, right? So on what I'm doing is just putting down basically the issue itself without an explanation and then saying, see attached sheet for a full explanation, right? So that way you're identifying the issue, right? And then you're telling them to, look at your piece of paper you've added so you'll understand what I'm talking about, right? So I say do that. And then, of course, 15B is just the date of your decision. Now, if you're wondering what that date is, on the front of your decision notice, it usually looks like this, right? And then there's a date, rating decision. That's what they're talking about, that one, right? So sometimes you'll get other forms. I've seen multiple forms come from the VA with different dates on them. I don't know why that is, but the one you're looking for is where they specifically are going to address your issue, which is on the front of this form. Right. Anyway, so then you need to identify, even though I've identified this specific issue here, right? But it should be identified in your decision somewhere what your problem is, right? Now here, I'm going to dispute two issues on this particular decision. Uh, so they have issued me a 20% rating for my ankle. Well, I filed a claim for contractures of my calves and ankle injuries in service, right? So for some reason, they've combined them, right? And well, they should be separate ratings, right? At least the way I understand how ratings work, they should be separate, right? Well, they combined them, and I don't agree with that. So that's why I've listed it on my right here. Left contracture should be rated separately, right? Um, so the other thing is they gave me an effective date of August 31. Well, either way, an effective date I don't agree with, right? So what I've listed on the form, right? Right ankle should have and notice here I'm talking about the right and left contractures and then right and left ankles, right? But I just simply put right ankle should have an effective date of what I think it should be, right? So that's basically how you identify your specific issue and, of course, your date of decision, right? So now, an explanation of why you believe what you believe sometimes it's hard to say. For example, I filed two separate claims. Why did they combine it? See, previously diagnosed as, contractures. It hasn't been previously. It was diagnosed as contractures, right? I mean, it hasn't changed. And then they're talking about, and then they combined it with the ankle thing. I mean, I don't know why they've done that. They shouldn't have done that, right? So I can't imagine why. So it's kind of like hard to, explain when I don't know why they did this, right? So the explanation I'm going to offer, and here's what's really, really important here, right? Is you can't just go and fill out this form like this, right? And say, okay, here's my issue. And let's say you didn't write an explanation. You just say, well, you shouldn't have, they should be rated separately, right? And then send it in, right? That's a bad idea, right? You need to give a full explanation of why you think you should win your claim or why, whatever it is, whatever dispute you have, you need to explain why they're wrong, why you're right, right? So, don't go about this casually. You really need to think about what you're doing, right? If you want to win, right? So I'm going on to explain exactly, right, what they've done, right? First, one of the things is on the piece, a sheet, additional sheet I'm attaching, I'm not putting a signature block on it. I'm not signing it, right? Because it's not a statement. I'm not writing a statement, right? I'm writing an argument, right? Why, what they've done doesn't make sense to me and why it should be different, right? So just remember, any additional sheets you attach need to have your name and social security number, right? So, and I put that up in the margin, right? And then I go on to just say, contractors explanation continuation from the form and the date of the form. So it's pretty simple, at least, and I think this is a reasonable format to follow. And then I'm saying what they did, and what I did, right? Under one here, I'm saying I submitted claims for calves and ankles, right? VA combined the disabilities into a single disability and only rated ankles at 20% per dorsiflexion. I don't know how to say that word. I don't care how to say it. I'm just going to call it dorsiflexion. Right? I'm sorry. All right. So, but anyway, so uh, because of that, right? There's the problem. I've stated the problem, right? And now I'm stating that, all right, during their examination of the two different claims, they did actually fill out a DBQ for the calf, right? It's a muscle, so they did a muscles injury DBQ, right? And they filled it out, right? And I note here the date it was filled out, 11/8/2017, and it was completed in conjunction with the calf claim. And they found a muscle injury of group 11, the calf muscle, right? And they noted that there were symptoms and problems with it, right? Uh, for some reason, though, on the DBQ, they didn't complete that section. I don't know why that is, but I'm mentioning it. So I'm also note at the bottom, right? The 20% ankles rating for dorsiflexion does not contemplate group 11 disabilities. Thus, group 11 disabilities must be rated separately, right? And the thinking there, just the simple thinking, it's just really easy. The ankles are like the ankle. The calves are the calves. It's they're not the same thing, right? I mean, having problems in both of them, it's hard for them to compensate with only rating one of them, right? I mean, to me, it's that simple, right? However, it does get more than depth than that. And that's why you really have to. So I have an explanation here, right? And that's really one of the biggest points here is you're going to identify the issue, right, up here, right? And then you're going to attach that explanation that goes into more of a full explanation. But you even need to go a little past that if possible, right? In my case, if, for example, this person who calls me for the informal conference, I mean, I'm kind of hoping that they review things before they call me. I mean, all this paperwork has been sent to them. Hopefully, they'll like look it over before the call. I've been in Under the old system. I went to a number of hearings and conferences, both at the BVA level and the regional office level, and it seems like they're totally clueless about what you're going to be talking about when you get there. It's like it's a whole new deal to them. You don't even know what you're talking about, right? So I'm hoping these informal conferences would at least like understand where you're coming from so you're on the same sheet of music. But I don't know, in fact, that they will know anything about what you're talking about. Um, I guess we'll just have to play it by ear, everybody, how that's going to work out. But anyway, um, you need to know the exact details of what you're talking about, right? So up here under the explanation where I've said um, the muscle, or when you go down to no specific issue was noted on on the VHA copy, my exam was at the VHA. It posted to my health file, and that's where I got the copy of the DBQ. Now, I don't know, in fact, that the VA gets maybe a different copy. I don't know, right? But hopefully they have the same copy I have. But in any event, um, the issue here on the left, it is the actual DBQ, which that they filled out, the electronic version. So notice it says, veteran, does the veteran have any of the following signs and symptoms attributable to muscle injuries? And it's checked yes. But, you know, does he have any of the following signs? But then there's nothing below that, right? It starts at the next section, which is muscle strength testing, which leaves off a huge part, right? And look at the over to the right here. This image is the actual written, the DBQ that you can download, right? And notice it specifically notes, right? I mean, it's the same question. Does the veteran have any of the following signs, right? And then it shows what those signs are. And if you check it, yes, you're supposed to say, what are those signs? Is it loss of power, weakness, lowered threshold of fatigue, and it goes on and on with a number of symptoms. And on my DBQ, it's not filled out. And really, for them to rate my muscle or any muscle for any veteran who's having this filled out, right? It needs to express why there's a problem. To rate you properly, they have to know, was there weakness? I mean, is there fatigue and pain, right? But on my actual filled out DBQ, it just doesn't identify anything. In essence, what this is an inadequate exam if, in fact, the copy I have is the same copy the VA has, because it doesn't identify the issues it needs to identify to properly rate me, right? So that is an issue that I'll be able to speak of if I need to, right? I'm hoping this person will know what's what, and I won't even have to go into that. But there's another issue. Notice my last line of the explanation, that 20% from the ankles rating per dorsiflexion does not contemplate group 11 disabilities. One of the things when they try to avoid pyramiding, right, which is if you have more than one issue affecting a certain part of your body, you can't have more than one rating normally on that part, right? So I can see them thinking, and again, I'm guessing here because they haven't explained it, right? And that's why I'm trying to head that off, right? Is they've said, they gave me 20% for my ankles, and maybe they think that the calves are exactly what's causing the problems with the ankles. So the rating for the ankles also in, contemplates what's wrong with the calf, right? I think that's a stupid argument, but I could see them saying that because they're stupid, right? Stupid people think stupid things, and something tells me, I'm trying to think stupid. Very difficult for me to do, right? But I'm trying, right? So, but I've tried to head that off, right? Because here's how you head it off, right? Is we're talking about my calf muscle, which is group 11, right? And notice under function, it doesn't include dorsiflexion, right? Group 12 does, in fact, include that, right? So, but they've rated me for the ankle, for dorsiflexion, and under group 11, again, it's not a function of group 11, right? So, certainly, that not only the function's completely different from the ankle dorsiflexion function, right? So, definitely there should be separate ratings here, right? And I'm ready to argue that point if I need to when I talk to this person on the phone, right? But I'm hoping this person is smart enough just to say, okay, ankles, calves, two different problems should have two ratings, and then I won't have to talk about anything, right? But here's the thing. That's why you need to know the details. Absolutely know the details of your explanation and be ready to talk about them, right? So, because that's how you win a claim, right? Know what you're doing. That's how you do it. So, basically, that's all there is to it. I'm going to talk about the other issue I'm going to argue. You don't have to stay for that, right? Right now, I think we've went through how to do the higher level review. Pretty easy. Identify, fill out these blocks with whatever you want to, right? It, identify your decision date, your specific issue, give an explanation, know your details, done, right? So that's all there is to it. For those of you who want to watch the rest of this, listen to the last explanation I have about the ankles, which is pretty interesting, right? I'm going to start now. The rest of you, go do what you do, right? So, anyway, so the other issue I'm going to argue um, is the effective date. Now, what I'm going to try to do is maximize my benefit, which I've always talked about to all you veterans in other videos, right? And one of the ways you do that is really you need to look at every aspect of every single thing the VA says and does. And one of the things I've talked about is reasonably raised claims. And basically what that is if the VA is adjudicating one of your claims, right? And during that adjudication, another possible claim that you haven't talked about may is mentioned in what they're actually looking at, the adjudicator and or both the examiner, the compensation and pension examiner, have discovered this other issue may be a factor, well, then they're supposed to adjudicate it, right? Without you asking. They're just supposed to do it, right? So if at some later date you get service connected for an issue that has been long lasting, you should go back and look at what's happened. For example, way up here, right, is all right, so I've won this claim for my ankles, right? And on this particular claim here, this is actually a result of already on an appeal. They only gave me 10%. I filed an appeal. I won it to 20%. Why? Because it should have been 20%. Again, you're working with stupid people. They can't figure out what to do. So sometimes people like me have to tell them what to do, right? And after I told them what to do, they changed it to 20%, like they should have found in the first place. But now I'm going to look at all aspects of this claim, right? Is there anything in my record about my ankles that may lead to an earlier effective date than 2010? Now, I didn't file this claim till 2017, right? So I already got it backdated to 2010, right? But is there anything else, right? So now that I've looked a little more close, I did find some other things, right? And here's what I found. I found that when a couple of mentions of this ankle, right? Let's look at this one right below my picture here first, right? 32-year-old complains of broken right foot. He's wearing an orthopedic shoe, treated for the problem. Also complains about torn tendons in the left foot with, notice there's a date here, right? Torn tendons, right? But, and then that 10-1-89, that's the top longer form here, which notice what it says, inversion injury, left ankle, right? And anyway, so the broken in the broken foot, which I've actually went to the doctor about, right? Also, and it's kind of I was in bad shape back then, right? I had broke my right foot, right? And initially there was a cast on it. So then because I ended up ripping the tendons in my left ankle. So I effectively couldn't walk, right? But the whole point is there's a record of this, right? And also the bottom right figure here is inversion injury right foot. That's when I actually broke the right foot. But an um, inversion injury is an ankle sprain. That's what that is, right? So right ankle sprain has led to a break of the right foot. Now, why this is all important is looking at my argument, right? Is I'm explaining that service connection was granted for that broken foot in 1995, right? And I'm explaining service medical records specific to the right foot fracture were in front of both the medical examiner and the adjudicator during that process. In other words, in 1995, when they service connected my broken foot, they had these three records in front of them, right? So they knew at this point that I had right ankle injuries and left ankle injuries. The left ankle injury is really clear here, right? I mean, it talks about the torn tendons, and then there's the other form that specifically mentions the, how bad it was, right? But on this lower form where it talks about the torn tendons, the rest of that form is an examination of the left ankle and the right foot by this particular doctor, where he goes on to detail both injuries, right? So it's really clear on the left, and then there's a note on the right that the right foot break was actually from an ankle injury, right? So I'm arguing that when they service connected the foot break in 1995, they also should have adjudicated both ankles, right? Which I already tell you, for sure, I'm winning the backdating of the left ankle. I should win the right too, because, I mean, I don't, in theory, right? I mean, imagine, put yourself in place of the adjudicator in 1995. Who knows the rules and the compensation and pension examiner, right? Right? They know if they find another injury, they're supposed to adjudicate it. They know this. Remember, this was in conjunction with my retirement, so I was just leaving service. So they absolutely need to look carefully at these things, right? So you're reading the record about the broken foot, and then you come across the ripped, torn tendons and the big injury to the left ankle, and then that the foot break was because of a right ankle injury, right? You would think right away they should say, oh, we should look at that, right? And that's the simple thing I'm arguing. And that's how I'm going to explain it to the person on the phone when I talk to them, is to put yourself in the place of the adjudicator in conjunction with my retirement, right? And they're supposed to be looking at any injuries that just happened during service, right? So and then I end, after pointing out the three documents, I'm ending with the above records led to direct service connection of both ankles, which they did, right? And the very same records were in front of the medical examiner and the adjudicator in 1995 that service connected the broken foot. Thus, both ankle injuries were reasonably raised by the record in 1995, right? So I should win both of those. I'm certainly going to win the left, but I'll keep arguing for both depending what happens. But like I said, look at every detail when you win a claim. See, did you have older claims? Was something mentioned about these new issues that you finally filed for that were won, right? So, um, because it could result in significant back pay, right? So, I mean, come on, let's say it gets backdated. It's going to get backdated from 2010 all the way to 1995, right? So, I retired, so it won't. The law only lets me collect money from 204 if I get it backdated, but still, any back pay from 204 to 2010 is still a significant number, right? But anyway, so that's how I'm filing this higher level review, and then we'll see what happens. So I haven't got anything else to say. So veterans out there, out.